In August 1943, a destroyer escort called the USS Eldridge vanished from a Philadelphia naval yard. Its crew didn't just disappear, they teleported 200 miles to Norfolk, Virginia. But here's what the Navy doesn't want you to know. The survivors lived to tell about it. Some experienced catastrophic physical mutations. Others were permanently fused into the ship's metal. And for over 80 years, their testimonies have been systematically suppressed under classified documentation that government agencies refuse to release. Tonight, we're examining the evidence the military buried and asking why institutional silence persists when the truth could be declassified with a single executive order. On August 12, 1943, at approximately 1400 hours, something impossible occurred at Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. According to the first credible witness account, a letter sent to UFO researcher Morris K. Jessup in 1955 by alleged survivor Carl Allen, the USS Eldridge was equipped with experimental electromagnetic apparatus designed by military contractors working from Nikola Tesla's theoretical framework. The technology wasn't merely meant to render the ship invisible to radar. The operational parameters, according to Allen's testimony, involved full electromagnetic phase shifting, a physics application that contemporary military science considered theoretical at best, impossible at worst. The experiment, Allen claimed, was authorized at the highest levels of naval command. Authorization codes were prepared, coordinates locked in. The USS Eldridge would vanish from Philadelphia and instantaneously materialize in Norfolk, a controlled demonstration of military technology that would revolutionize naval warfare. At the designated moment, witnesses reported a phosphorescent green luminescence enveloping the ship's superstructure. Then, in a temporal instant that survivors described as simultaneous and eternal, the USS Eldridge disappeared. Not metaphorically, not into darkness, entirely gone. When the ship materialized in Norfolk hours later, the crew was transformed. Some exhibited permanent physical mutations. Others spoke incoherently of temporal displacement. Most were unable to process what had happened to their bodies and minds. The Navy's immediate response was swift and institutional. Separate the survivors, classify the documentation, and initiate a decades-long campaign of official denial that persists. What makes the Philadelphia experiment compelling isn't a single piece of evidence. It's the pattern of interlocking documentation that authorities can't quite suppress. First, consider the electromagnetic foundation. Nikola Tesla's declassified patents, available through the National Archives and U.S. Patent Office, reveal sophisticated research into electromagnetic field manipulation at scales theoretically capable of affecting physical matter. Why would military researchers in 1943 confiscate Tesla's papers and establish classified research initiatives derived from his theoretical work, if not for military application? The pattern suggests Tesla's concepts weren't merely historical curiosity, they were operational blueprint. Second, examine the witness testimony consistency. Carl Allen provided hyperspecific details across multiple interviews. Exact dates, naval jargon, behavioral descriptions of survivors that match no known psychological condition in 1943 medical literature. Yet Allen maintained these accounts with remarkable consistency until his death in 1994. Third, consider the institutional response pattern. Freedom of Information Act requests to the Department of Defense regarding the Philadelphia experiment consistently return redacted documents or denials of record existence. This response, deny, delay, redact, isn't innocent bureaucratic indifference, it's active suppression. As declassification experts have documented, the Navy's official posture has shifted subtly from no record exists to no evidence of involvement. This distinction matters. One claims ignorance, the other implies documentary existence. Fourth, we have the survivor network itself. Researchers have identified approximately 40 to 60 individuals across 7 decades claiming direct or secondary knowledge of the incident. While a small cohort, their geographical dispersal and generational separation suggest organic rather than manufactured testimony. Several survivors have reportedly requested witness protection status, a detail the Navy hasn't publicly addressed, only systematically ignored. The pattern becomes clear when you examine what acknowledging the experiment. The most compelling evidence emerges from the survivors themselves, individuals who experienced temporal displacement firsthand. According to documented testimony, survivors describe phenomena that transcend conventional physics explanation. Temporal disorientation represented the most consistent symptom. Crew members reported being unable to recall the duration of the event, experiencing what they described as temporal compression, multiple subjective experiences occurring simultaneously. Medical examinations of survivors conducted by researchers without institutional affiliation documented electromagnetic sensitivity so severe that some allegedly couldn't touch metal objects for months afterward. One documented survivor, identified only as Subject 7 in alternative research literature, reportedly experienced spontaneous electromagnetic discharge when near electronic equipment, a phenomenon suggesting fundamental biological alteration at the cellular level. Psychological evaluations revealed what researchers termed psychic scarring, a form of trauma exceeding conventional PTSD diagnostic criteria. Survivors exhibited non-responsive behavior to standard psychiatric interventions, suggesting the neurological damage transcended psychological trauma alone. Most remarkably, survivors consistently reported similar subjective experiences despite having no documented contact with one another. A sensation of existing in multiple temporal states simultaneously, visual perception of electromagnetic fields as visible phenomena, and persistent awareness of the wrongness of their bodies following the event. One survivor, interviewed in 1987, described his experience as knowing that you occupied a space you were never meant to occupy. These accounts, documented across 7 decades by researchers with no institutional affiliation, suggest exposure to phenomena are. The most damning evidence isn't what exists. It's what the Navy actively suppresses through institutional silence. The U.S. government has a documented history of conducting unethical classified experiments on military personnel without informed consent. The Tuskegee syphilis study, the MK-Ultra program, classified radiation exposure experiments conducted on hospital patients and prisoners. This established pattern of institutional deception creates a precedent context. If the military conducted secret psychological experiments through MK-Ultra, would electromagnetic research on living subjects be qualitatively different or merely an extension of existing classified capability? The pattern suggests institutional behavior consistent with suppression. Consider the documentary evidence. The Navy has never issued a categorical denial. Official statements consistently assert no record of the USS Eldridge, rather than the incident never occurred. This linguistic distinction matters profoundly. One claims documentary absence, the other claims factual falsity. The Navy has chosen the former phrasing, a position that becomes indefensible if documentation ever surfaces. Furthermore, declassified military research programs from the 1940s and 1950s reveal systematic exploration of theoretical physics applications that contemporary science considered impossible. Particle acceleration, quantum phenomena, electromagnetic field manipulation. That classified research proceeded in these directions suggests institutional acknowledgement that unconventional physics represented viable research frontier. The pattern of silence, when examined through this lens, becomes comprehensible not as innocent denial, but as strategic suppression. Acknowledging the Philadelphia experiment would require acknowledging classified military capability, validating 75 years of institutional deception and confronting the implications. If electromagnetic phase shifting was achieved in 1943, what represents modern military application of that technology? The survivors exist. Their testimonies persist. The documentation remains classified, and the Navy's silence, maintained through institutional mechanisms.
The Philadelphia experiment narrative exhibits every hallmark of a conspiracy theory built on selective perception and retroactive justification. Begin with the foundational claim. No USS Eldridge served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. The ship, PF-31, didn't commission until June 1943 after the alleged August 1943 incident, and operated exclusively in the Atlantic. This isn't ambiguity, it's factual contradiction. The original witness, Carl Allen, never provided verifiable service records, military documentation, or contemporaneous evidence. His 1955 letter appears 12 years after the alleged event, precisely when UFO mythology saturated American culture. This temporal gap invites cognitive reconstruction. Allen conflated rumors, misremembered details, or deliberately fabricated an account to gain attention. Psychologically, this matches the false memory phenomenon extensively documented in conspiracy research. The claim that silence equals evidence of cover-up commits the logical fallacy of unfalsifiability. No amount of absence proves suppression. Tesla's declassified patents reveal no working teleportation technology, only theoretical speculation. Degaussing equipment, while electromagnetic, is well documented and publicly understood, not a hidden teleportation system. Finally, the argument that government conducted unethical experiments, therefore teleportation is plausible, conflates categories. Acknowledging past misconduct doesn't validate fantastical claims lacking physical evidence. Occam's razor demands we accept the parsimonious explanation, a compelling myth created to explain wartime rumors, weaponized by conspiracy entrepreneurs, and sustained by confirmation bias among believers seeking hidden truth in institutional silence.